Tali, the floor is all yours.
Thank you. My name is Tali. I am an alcoholic. Let me hit OK here. Yeah. Um, I am an alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 26, 1990. I have a sponsor. I sponsor um, maybe not quite a few women, but a little less these days. and But it's not about the number. It's about the connection that we have, that we're able to go to God together, that we're able to work the steps together and go to God together. And that makes me, a pretty fortunate woman that I have that kind of circle around me. So I'll briefly, 44 minutes, man, that's a long time. Okay, with my voice going out, it's squeaking like a. Anyways, so I'll briefly tell you a little bit about where I come from and when I picked up the first drink and all that kind of stuff, and then I will go into. I'd like to talk a little bit about step two today, um, just because I find myself, it might shock some of you, I find myself trying to live on a non-spiritual basis. I'm trying to commit my life to God, but I'm also trying to do it my own way. And I've been searching for door number three for many years. There is no door number three. Those that continue with door number three end up dead or dead in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous. Um, that was me. I thought I could do it without that spiritual connection. When I was sober 22 years, I tried to consider what would be a way to commit suicide, to kill myself without really that it won't hurt. Um, Anyway, so I'll get to that portion in just a moment. I come from Israel. I'm the youngest of three. My family was not religious, was not Orthodox. I grew up with a lot of chaos in my home, abuse, beatings, and I guess when I started drinking and I was drinking on the bar, feeling sorry for myself, putting my head on the bar and just like, weeping and weeping. I guess I did think that I drank because of that. I think it probably adds some flammable material to my reasons to drink, but there is no such thing as drinking because of that. I know that it just help, make the fire just a little bit bigger of my alcoholism. So at the age of 15, I picked up a drink. I went to a wedding. We had in Israel at a party or wedding or a holiday, they put a lot of hors d'oeuvres on the table. And I drank. My friend sitting next to me gave me a big, tall glass of Johnny Walker Red. They put a little bit of Coca-Cola in it. And because it was so disgusting, I guzzled the whole thing in one shot. And his brother sitting to my other side said, "Oh, wow, she finished it. Give her another one." So they gave me another one. And the option of saying no didn't occur to me. And I guzzled that second one and I just face planted in the hummus. Before the wedding even began, I was carried outside. And they took me home and brought me over to my parents. And it's not like I heard many people say, "Oh, even though it was so disgusting, I couldn't wait to do it again." That was not my story. I think it took a couple of years before I picked up another drink. I was introduced to some outside issues, some dried goods in the neighborhood, and even that was not something I was in a rush to do all the time. I had my standards. I was going to only drink top shelf when I drank. I was only going to, whatever drugs I did was going to be the best of the best. And that line had kind of changed as I was ready to get sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. Thank God. I could see that I was changing the line of I will never do this, or I will never do that. I've done it all towards the end. So anyways, at the same time that I picked up the drink and I thought that, life with drugs and drinking would be interesting to me, I also thought that high school is not for me, and I'm not that type of person. And I quit high school. I just left and went on my merry way and continued to hang out with all the hoodlums in the neighborhood. Um, And yeah, I kind of floundered around or had little jobs here and there until I went to the army. At the age of 18, I went to the army. After women go for 2 years, after 1 year of feeling just like I cannot take another breath if I stay here, I asked my boyfriend at the time to please marry me so I can get out and be released. And he did, and I was released. And anyways, fast forward, I got into some heavier, um, well, I started working at a private membership nightclub in Tel Aviv, and I met all the who's and who's, all the famous people that came from, artists, Julio Iglesias, and all kinds of people that came to Israel. Um, I was waiting on tables at that club, and I thought that kind of the delusion seeped in, and I started to feel like I'm one of them. I would party with those guests, and I would wait on on tables, and I would like go out with them afterwards, and thinking I'm I'm one of them, and I don't have to look into my past or my family with shame, but I could look forward to the future as a jet setter. And I met this wonderful man from Belgium, a diamond dealer that came to Israel to do business. I met him, and by that time I already got divorced, and he scooped me off that club and took me all over Europe. We went skiing in the French Alps. We went to Paris. We went to Switzerland. We went to England. And my behavior over there didn't seem like much of a lady when we were skiing. And he put me on a plane the next day, never to talk to me again. And that shame just contributed more to who I thought I am and what I thought I deserve. And that wasn't a fun situation. So, anyways, I continued to work at that club until my drug use and my drinking have kind of escalated and became a little bit close to impossible. And I thought I really wanted to be a good girl. I wanted to be a good girl with all my might. And I decided that the problem is Tel Aviv, the problem is Israel. My mom lived in America, so I left the country and I moved to New York. It took me about 5 minutes to meet husband number two, which was a used car dealer in New York. That's not a good thing to befriend. And yeah, it started a chapter in my life that became very difficult to tolerate. Of course, I thought, oh, this is going to be so wonderful. He gave me a Mercedes like 2 weeks into the relationship. And I thought, what a sweet man, what a wonderful man. I know my life is going to just be phenomenal right now. I just didn't take into consideration that I took myself with me. I brought myself to America, and I found another guy that does exactly what I do. And he introduced me to some other drugs that I never tried before. And I thought, wow, this is amazing. This is not even a drug. You could just be like on speed for days on end, and nobody will even know what's going on with you. And I got pregnant, I had a baby, and then sooner or later, I couldn't take care of the baby. We would get drunk and get high all night. And in the morning, he asked me, he wanted to go to sleep, and he asked me to take the baby and walk the streets so he could be peaceful and sleep. And a couple of years of that kind of abuse from him, and I just said, I'm not going to put up with him. I took the baby and I went back to my mom, and my mom said, oh, good riddance. He's the one that got you in all this trouble. Without him, you don't have a problem. Of course, very, very quickly, I could see that now I have a bigger problem because I don't have any drug supply or alcohol as much as I wanted. Now I really had a problem. And so life became a little bit more difficult. Taking care of the baby became a little bit more difficult. I would leave my son with my mom for 2 days and 3 days and 4 days in a row, not come home. She would have to take him with her to work. She worked at Simon & Schuster Publishing in Manhattan. She would have to take him on the subway and show up to work with a little 2-year-old or 3-year-old. It was 3. Or she had to call in sick. And then she would just look at me and know that I'm just going off the deep end, excuse me, drinking and drugging. Excuse me, daily. And she begged me not to go. So we had this nightly standoff where she would beg me not to go, and I would go. And because I didn't want that standoff again, I did not want that situation with her, I would just not come home. So 2 days will go by and 3 days will go by, and it would just be a nightmare. To speed it up a little bit, I'll tell you that she started attending Al-Anon. Somebody told her at that Al-Anon meeting, you need to throw her out. If you want to help her, just throw her out and take her son away from her. And when she told me this, I told her to go back to Al-Anon and give them a message to the whole group. You go back there and you let them know the Jewish people never, 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 never throw their children out. That you are stuck with me and I'm going nowhere. And she just looked at me and cried and cried and cried, and my drinking continued to escalate. But I was afraid that she will now act against me, and I started attending meetings. Not with any decision to quit. I didn't even know people quit in AA. I didn't even know what AA was all about. I had no idea what you guys do here, nor did I have an intention of learning what you do or interest in any of that. But I started attending, and I heard all kinds of things, some of which were just don't drink and go to meetings. Meeting makers make it. Just don't drink no matter what. Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle, which is a wonderful saying. I like that one. But all the other things, I was making all the meetings and I was drinking after all the meetings. And I just did not know how not to. I didn't even care to learn. It wasn't like I was interested or that I hit bottom or anything like that. I just tried to make the consequences go away, that my mom would get off my back, leave me alone, and I could drink and drug and in peace. But she didn't leave me alone, and she continued to go to Al-Anon, and I continued to attend AA. But I fell in love. I fell in love with the fact that you people told me, keep coming back. Let us love you until you learn to love yourself. And I looked for the most attractive lady in the room, and she became a sponsor. Well, kind of, yeah. So I did this dance about going to meetings and drinking for a few months, and then and I don't think I had a sponsor at that time, but one of the girls after the meeting, after I didn't show up for a few days, she called me. Well, let me backtrack. One night before, I went to meet a friend of mine from Israel in New York. He was living a couple of blocks away from me, from my mom. And I went to meet him, and there was a pile of drugs, tons of drinks, a lot of all the paraphernalia that I used to love and enjoy. And I opened a brand new bottle of tequila, and I guzzled the whole bottle. I just literally unscrewed it. I guzzled the whole bottle, and I wasn't even drunk. Couldn't even get drunk at all. And I can't tell you all the drugs that were there. I was smoking cigarettes and joints and snorting and drinking and all that. And I couldn't get high. I couldn't get drunk. At that point, my soul left my body, and I was hanging on the ceiling, and I was looking down, and I thought, oh, now you're talking. You really lost your mind. You're hanging on the ceiling, and you're looking down, and you see yourself sitting there on the ground, leaning over the coffee table, drinking and smoking snorting, the insanity that you could be frantic like that. And I was hovering, like looking down and seeing myself and seeing him. And I thought, my God, no connection between us. He's sitting on the other side of the coffee table. I'm sitting here. Not that I was looking for any connection. I was just looking to drink and drug. And that whatever power. So at that time, like I said, I thought I lost my mind. So as I lost my mind, somehow I got up on my feet and I ran to the door and I started leaving. And he said, where are you going? Where are you going? I said, well, I'm in AA. I got to go. After I guzzled the whole bottle of tequila. And so I went home and I just begged. It was just a couple of blocks. I kind of ran home and I begged God all the way home, please just kill me. Do not let me endure this one more day. I cannot do this. I just cannot do this. And I went home and my mom was shocked that I was back. Because I left at midnight and I was back by 2 a.m., by far my shortest drunk. the least eventful. I wasn't raped. I wasn't robbed. I had much more drugs and alcohol to go around. And somehow my hands were down. I was off. I was done. And I went home and I went to sleep, begging God to take me. And I woke up in the morning and I was not happy. I was not happy. And I didn't know how I'm going to go another day. I can't now. I can't get drunk and I can't be sober. I'm like, I just don't belong. My usual. I just don't belong. And this girl from the meeting that was, I was seeing at the meetings for a long time, for those months that I was in, called me up and asked me to meet her at the meeting. I said, I'm not coming. I'm not going. This is not working for me. It might work for you. And then I don't even know if I really need this. I'm like, she goes, what? I said, well, I kind of like have a high bottom. And, and she started laughing. And she said, you're homeless. What do you mean, a high bottom? I said, I'm not homeless. I told you, I live with my mom. And she said, yes, how old are you? And your child? And she's the one putting food on the table, both for you and your child. My son was 4 at the time. And she said, meet me at the meeting tonight at 6 o'clock. And I said, well, the meeting starts at 7. I'm not going to get there at 6. She said, meet me there at 6 and just stop arguing. And I said, what do you have to tell me? You're like 22 years old. I'm 30. I'm a world traveler. And she goes, yeah, and that got you really far. Stop arguing. Just meet me there. When I got there, I was like all over her, trying to tell her all the stuff that happened to me since the last time she saw me. All my troubles, what my mom did and what my mom said and what my ex-husband, was doing and all this kind of stuff. And she wouldn't even listen to me. She would just run away from me on the other side of the room and just told me, set up all these chairs over here. And before I knew it, I was setting up 300 chairs that night. And the next day, a smaller meeting, only 250 chairs. I set up all those chairs. And the next day I set up all those chairs again in the same location with the 250. And people started taking bets that I will never make it because I was just constantly on the merry-go-round, coming back. And before I knew it, I had 30 days. I never had 30 days. I never could get more than 2 weeks. Like I couldn't. So then I had 30 days and then she said, well, if you stay sober for 30 days, we'll go out to dinner with this one and this one and this one. And I was like, couldn't wait to be a friend of this one and this one and this one. And all of these are beautiful ladies, flight attendants. She promised me she will make me friends with them. And I was having dinner with everybody. They took me to the diner every night. They fed me. These people just scooped me up and embraced me, as they did before when I was still drinking. Nobody said, get out of here, you don't belong because you're drinking. So I was, so yeah, you people loved me. And before I knew it, I had a year. And it was standing room only in that room. That room that I was like, first, like honestly, I thought these people are just, they need a cleaning lady. They need somebody to set up all the chairs. They just want me to use me. That's why they tell me keep coming back. I literally thought those things. And before I knew it, when I had a year, I would not give anybody the mop. I would not let anybody set up the chairs. I would not let anybody make the coffee. The coffee urns are bigger than me. I would not let them do it. I wanted to do it. I wanted to do it all because I could see what was happening for me. I could see that I'm finally able to stay sober. And it wasn't any of my doing. It didn't have to white knuckle it like this. It was just happening. So when I had a year, I decided to start going to school. And I had this beautiful, wonderful sponsor that was so helpful and so kind and started taking me through the big book. Well, before she was taking me through the big book. And I was going through all the steps. I felt like I belonged so much when I finally when I did the 4th step. I think I had like maybe 8 months or something when I wrote my inventory. And I went and shared with her. That was like a little bit of a weird experience because my sponsor, uh, anyways, I love her. I love her. Thank God for her. But it was a little different. She was like, I can't identify with this or that. I didn't do this. I didn't do that. Okay. It's not about what you did or what you didn't do. I tell my sponsees because I identify with the feeling. I identify if you felt inadequate or you felt like you were top of your game or you felt like, I felt it all. And so, anyways, I worked the steps and I felt like I belonged. I felt like this is my membership. As first it started with the chairs and the coffee, and then it became I work the steps. I belong. I belong here. I belong to all of you, and all of you belong to me, and we are one. And I started attending school, so I got a GED, and I got a 2-year degree as a substance abuse counselor. I went to Hunter College, New York, and then I got a 4-year degree also in Hunter College, New York, in sociology and psychology. And then I moved to Atlanta, and I went to chiropractic school, and I got a doctorate degree, and I opened a clinic, and I bought a house, and I had a boyfriend, and I thought this life is just phenomenal. Why do I want to die? Why do I want to die? And I don't know why, because I worked the steps. I sponsored women. I did a 5-year commitment in New York at the detox. I did a 5-year commitment at the jail in Atlanta, in Cobb County. Like I said, I had a big book study at my house. I was teaching people the big book. I could quote it, pages and pages, but I did not have this relationship with God. And this is what I talked about in the very beginning when I said I want to talk about step 2. Because I find myself at times trying to live on a non-spiritual basis. I don't call it that when I act this way. In retrospect, when each time I look at whatever action I take that I'm not connected to God, I say, oh, that's what I was doing. I was still trying to do it on my own. I was still telling God, thank you very much, I got this. So I'll go back now, since you have my story so far, I'll go back to the beginning when I was maybe 12 years old. I asked my father or my mom and my dad, why can't we do the Sabbath candles like all the neighbors? Like everybody here believes in God. What the hell? You don't have to be Orthodox, but if you're Jewish, if you live in Israel, if you're Israeli, you do something. And my father had this big, loud laugh, and he said, because there is no God, that's why. There is no God. And somewhere around that very period, the same time, there was a mount from my window, from my bedroom from my bedroom window, I could see the beach. There was like walking just like a few feet away. I could see the water, and from the other window on the other side of the house was the Mount Carmel. So it was like a little bit a small mountain, like not like Colorado, but a nice mountain. And I ran away from my house. I was 12 years old. I ran and climbed up that mountain with no path, not a hike. I was climbing like this all the way to the top. And there was this gorgeous little church up top. I knew where I was going. I went to that church. It's not customary for a Jewish 12-year-old to walk into a church. It's a big deal. But I knew I was safe. I felt safe. It had beautiful stained glass windows. And I walked in and I felt nothing but peace and serenity. Nobody said, well, you look Jewish. I don't know. Get the hell out. No. I saw people lighting candles. The priests were walking around with those brown dresses. They were kind to me. They were sweet to me. Some of them just walked about their own business and didn't even bother to look at me. It was a peaceful, wonderful experience that was not repeated. Later, years and years in the program, I look back and I see in Bill's story on the first page, he already said, much moved, I wandered outside. I never attributed that hanging on the ceiling to be much moved, that I wandered outside. I did not think this was a profound, deep spiritual experience. I didn't think that going up to that church was a profound spiritual experience, that I even dared to think this way, that I could do it. Very abusive home. Who knows what could have happened to me? I didn't even give it a second thought. I just went and walked in and felt so much peace. So fast forward years later, in my mind, there is no God because Father said that. And my family acted like there is no God. And I get sober. Like I said, I worked all the steps. And here's some of the stuff. Here's something that I heard also that I really disagree with. That when people take other people to the steps, they tell them about step 2, just know that there is a God and it's not you. Well, I urge you not to do this because step 2 takes so much more, so much depth, so much weight, so much of a relationship. So when I think, last few days, I'm thinking about came to believe. What made me came to believe? What made this that I came in the past came to believe? I don't know. I tell you what happened is that those spiritual experiences that have happened, a number of other ones that have happened in my heart, and I didn't even know this was what's going on. Bill talked about much moved. He wanted outside, but that feeling of God, soon went away. And whatever feeling I had soon went away. The number of times that I revisited it. And a few years ago, I was going through the steps again. Excuse me. I was going through the steps again. And I was looking at reading We Agnostic, going through the whole chapter. Yeah, every word is a nugget in We Agnostic. It's just an unbelievable chapter. But in my feeling of like, I don't belong, I don't feel God, I don't know if there is a God, is there, isn't there? What if my father was right? What if all this nonsense? And then I read on page 55 on top, actually we were fooling ourselves, for deep down in every man, woman, and child was the fundamental idea of God. And my head exploded because I said, I was the child. Literally, I was 12 years old. I was that child. And that was a fundamental idea of God. But the fundamental idea of God is not enough. When I came to believe, it's because of a paragraph later. It says, it may be obscured by calamity, by pomp, by worship of other things, but in some form or other, it is there. For faith in a power greater in ourselves and miraculous demonstrations of that power in human lives are facts as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup. Oh my God. I was like, 28 years sober before I could see it. Before I could feel it, before I could have it in my heart, before it could reverberate with all the implications that it carries. For faith in a power greater than ourselves, in miraculous demonstration of that power in human lives, a fact as old as man himself. We finally saw that faith in some kind of God was a part of our makeup. What a comfort. It's a part of my makeup. I don't care what my father said. It doesn't matter. Just as much as the feeling we have for a friend. Sometimes we had to search fearlessly, but he was there. And that is, for me, how I came to believe. I came to believe because I sought, and I sought more, and I sought to deepen, and I sought to create a relationship. A friend of mine, Ali from Toronto, he always says, God does not keep me sober. My relationship with God keeps me sober. And it's my job to continue with the seeking, to continue with step 2, seeking, to continue when I turn my life and my will over to God in step 3, seeking. And one of the promises for step 3 talks about if we kept close to him and perform his work well, how am I going to keep close to something I never found? How can I work step 3, excuse me, if I did not find and created the foundation? Now, I often, when I hear in discussions of step 2, that people try to define God. For me, it's so far from defining God. If I can define God, he's too small. My God has to be bigger than me, bigger than my disease, bigger than my comprehension, bigger than what I think I can define him as. And I'm really finding deeper and deeper connections, so much so that sometimes in meditation, I just burst into tears because it's just so, hold on before my computer will die. I burst into tears because I'm so deeply moved. I can really feel that my seeking had taken me another step and another level. And it did not stay surface. It's not because it did not stay at the place where somebody told me, just know that there is a God and it's not you. Where is that going to lead me? Where do I go from there? If that's what I think a relationship with God is, that it's not me. And so fast forward again now to a different direction, that when I was 22 years sober and I wanted to die and I didn't know why, I was talking to a friend of mine that I often did from Florida, that I used to attend retreats with her, women's retreats. And I kept telling her again about the suicide and this and that. And she said she had a couple from Texas that came to Navarre in Florida, and they did a big book study. And some of you know them, the beloved Charlie and Katie. And she said, I want you to talk to Katie. I said, I'm offended. Like the best sponsor in AA, I don't know what you're talking about. She goes, you could be offended all you want. I hear you talk about suicide over and over and over again. I don't know about your relationship with God. I don't know about the depth of it. I don't know about the weight of it. I don't even know if it can sustain you. It's a miracle that you stayed sober this long when you have not established your own connection with God. So she gave me Katie's phone number. I called Katie and she's like, some of you know her. She speaks a mile a minute. She's like, I sponsor half the country. I can't sponsor you, but I'll take a 10-step call. I said, what? What's a 10-step call? I never heard it. Because my take on step 10 was, if you really screw up with someone, you run fast and you say, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. I never saw the words in the book. And I taught the big book. Say those words, but they mean absolutely nothing. So anyway, Katie asked me to write inventory on 3 names, just resentments I wrote in Katie's fashion. I never saw her in person. It was all on the phone for 3.5 hours. We got through 2 names. Some of the information that I gleaned from her was stuff that nobody ever could have delivered to me but Katie. She was able to break my defenses, to open my heart, and to let me listen and hear some stuff about my conduct, about how I live my life, how step 3 is an absolutely non-existent in my life, that I never turned my life over to God. And no, I didn't, because people in my home group said, just get on your knees, say the 3rd step prayer, and you're done. We are doing such injustice to newcomers or old-timers when we take them to the steps, if we don't really help them, take them to water and help them to drink it about step 2 and step 3 and 10. I had no clue about 10 and 11. So I spoke to you a little bit about my step 2 experience. And step 3, if you guys ever heard Katie speak on step 3, you know she dissects it line by line, and it just, by the time she's done, you're like, oh my God, I really need to put a gun to my head, because I had no clue what the hell I was doing here for, like, at the time it was 22 years. Now I'm sober almost 36, but at the time it was a game changer, absolutely a game changer. Almost always in collision. Katie said, Tali, in your case, always in collision. All your phone calls to me are about some freaking collision that you had. So in my clinic, at chiropractic clinic, you always deal with lawyers and people and car accidents and adjusters, insurance adjusters. And I was always calling with another fight with another attorney, another patient, another adjuster, another this, and I would be like exploding. And she would show me this, and I started to take a step back and go, oh my God. oh my God, this is the way I live my life. Fighting, always angry, always, if I didn't get my way, I never got my way. Why would I get my way? Because I start with the aggression. I don't start gentle. Well, some very manipulative people here in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous are very sweet, very third step experience. When they see how they went about life different, they did it with a smile. They did it manipulatively. They were very quiet and very gentle. I don't start gentle because I was just punched around when I was little to no end. But anyways, so I had a whole new experience with step 3. And the information that I got from the 2 names that we got through in 3.5 hours on the phone, we didn't even get to the third one. There was no need to, because I got so much. And at the end, I might add, I don't need information from this process. I need an experience. I need to get in touch with God. So the fourth step experience brought me closer to God, because I could see how astray I was. I could see how far outside the line I was drawing. I wasn't even close to what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. And she explained to me, isn't it interesting that you want to kill yourself because once that you got all that you wanted? You wanted education because you thought you're worthless. You wanted to, take care of your mom and help your mom because you thought you were worthless, because you mistreated her before. You wanted to buy a house because you thought you were worthless without. As long as you approve me. Unless I'm a doctor, I'm a nobody. I'm just like a horrible person. And it's like, and it was explained to me that I was living in a 3rd dimension of existence. And Bill's intention for us is to live in a 4th dimension of existence. Truly, for me, we have not even dreamed. We have not even sought out. I did not seek that. And so when I got closer to understanding that page 57, the last line of We Agnostic says, when we drew near to him, he disclosed himself to us. And I did my search. And then the promise from step 3, like I said, is when we kept close to him and performed his work well. The line preceding before says, he provided what he needed if we kept close to him. How am I going to keep something I never got too close to? And now I know. I had to start with 2. I had to go to 3. I now know how I could keep close to him and perform his work well. What is his work? What is his work? It's always working with newcomers. It's always saying yes when I'm called. It's always being called to the table to do the work that is needed for other people. I just don't call it service. This is not service. When I work with you on your steps, it's your step 1 is my step 12. I'm not like some goody two-shoes. I do this because I would like to live a spiritual life, not visit it from time to time. That's what I did for those 22 years or however long, when I found myself on a quest trying to live by a non-spiritual basis. I don't live a spiritual life. I'm thinking it's going to be like a little rest area. I'm going to say a quick prayer. I'm going to do a quick meditation, as minimum as possible, get back on the road and start, cursing other drivers while I drive, literally. That's not what this program calls for. Like a spiritual awakening. If I'm not spiritually awakened or on my way to the awakening, I'm spiritually asleep. And that's a bad situation if I'm spiritually asleep. It's a bad situation. Danette knows I have a very challenging situation at work right now, and I'm called to transcend. I'm called to transcend my, how I perceive I'm treated or not treated, how I perceive, things are going fair or not fair or whatever the case may be. I'm the best doctor in that clinic. I know it because people are telling me, like, I had a migraine for 3 weeks and it's gone. Anyways, very easy for me to run into self-pity. And I was hearing some self-improvement, motivational stuff years ago. And I remember hearing something like, you never see someone in the top of an enterprise with self-pity. It does not go together. If you're successful in life, you're not devoured by self-pity. That I have to divorce. That is not serving me well, never has. So anyways, going back to Katie taking me to explaining to me step 10, finally I could see, oh my goodness. Okay. So step 10 starts with, we continue to, it suggests that we continue to take personal inventory and continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. We vigorously commenced this way of living as we cleaned up the past. For the first time, I could see that I just need to continue. And I know exactly the actions that I need to take. Recently, what I'm coming to believe, what I'm coming to find out about step 10 and step 11, we used to look at them, and many of us look at them, and I sometimes still look at those two steps as instructional. You know, page 84 tells us exactly what to do. Then we hear the promises for step 10, which are amazing. And then Bill talks to us about the whole paragraph about it's easy to let up our spirit on our spiritual program of action and rest on our laurels. Why does he do it? Spends a whole paragraph because all of us do just enough to get by. Just enough to get by. We don't go forward and do a hell of a lot more if we can get away with it. And I think that's maybe what I've done for many, many years until then. So I know how to work step 10, and then step 11 starts on page 85 on the bottom. Then we turn the page to 86. It talks about the nightly review, instructions, an awakening instruction, what to do about, during the day. We pause. And I would like to pose to you this question. When were you all able to pause at an instruction? I see it as a promise. It's no longer just direction, even though it is directions in the book. That's how we start. But it became a promise because left to my own devices, I don't know how to pause. I don't know how to be understanding. I don't know how to use love and tolerance as my code. I don't. It becomes a part of me because I continue to practice this stuff, because I continue to turn to God, and I continue to seek, and I continue to deepen. And I tell you, if I'm able to be of service, this is just next level. Last weekend, I was invited to go to Canada and lead a whole spiritual retreat. The whole weekend, no other speakers. It was just me, a journey through the steps. And I'll tell you what, I invited everybody to not look at information, but to have an experience. If we can have an experience with our sponsees, with our sponsors, with our own work as we get through the big book, if we could do this and get closer to God, then we won. Then we won. It says that the purpose of this book is to help me find the power. What am I going to do with this power? And I found him. What are we going to do with that power when we found him? For me, it's not defining it. It's really just going about introducing someone else to that power and helping them see. Maybe you were living on a third dimension of existence for 30 years and you don't know why you want to put a gun in your mouth. Maybe that. Maybe, like me, it was more important to sound good and know the big book. So God forbid, if you know, oh, Tali, she knows the book. Almost killed me. Almost killed me. I hope I'm not looking at this stuff as information anymore. I hope. I'm very glad that like a year or two ago, I won the Big Book Thumper Stumper 2 weeks in a row, 3 weeks in a row. I was so proud of myself. Anyways, you guys are just, I love the message here. I really wish it was at like 6 a.m. But thank you, Eric. Thank you, Derek. Thank you, Mary Margaret. I love you guys. And I love all you ladies that came to be here and hear me. Thanks.